Singapore. Because you no longer have the freedom to preach the truth. But when he made hijrah, that was not the end. They did not leave him alone. No, they came after us. And then there was the battle of Badr. And in that battle we gave them a beating. It was humiliating for them, as it is today humiliating to them that our guerrilla warfare in Afghanistan has succeeded against the mightiest force in the world. It's humiliating to them that for 10 years they have given all that they could give to Afghanistan, and yet they have not succeeded. So we were successful at Badr. But they were so humiliated that they wanted revenge. And then they came back at us. Now with the biggest army that they could raise, the Quraysh. They didn't seek help from others, not yet. This is the Quraysh against you. And so they came and we fought at Uhud. And it was a stalemate. They could not move in for the kill because we retreated up the mountain. And so yes, they had the upper hand over us at Uhud, but they could not destroy us. It was a stalemate. So they said that we have avenged for Badr. We have beaten you at Uhud, but the war still continues. And then they came 2 years later with the largest military alliance they could possibly bring together. And this time they came for the kill, to finish off us completely once and for all. But no, they did not succeed. And they had to fold their tents and go back home when the siege did not succeed. And so now you have military stalemate. What's going to happen? While they were at Khandaq besieging us, we had an alliance with the pagan Arabs and with the Jews called the Mithaq of Medina. And that Mithaq of Medina was a treaty with certain obligations, treaty obligations, that members of the treaty could not support an enemy against a fellow member of the treaty, and the Jews violated that. And so as soon as the Khandaq war had failed and the Quraysh and the alliance had withdrawn, we took action against Banu Qurayza, before that Banu Qaynuqa. And the Jews fled to Khaybar. They lost their properties in Medina, and they were grinding their teeth in anger and in frustration. They wanted blood, they wanted vengeance, and they built their base in Khaybar. The Quraysh, on the other hand, to the south, I wish we had a map, were also very frustrated because they had given to warfare all that they could and they had not succeeded. If we were to sit in Medina and do nothing, as if today we were to sit in the world and do nothing, what would be the consequence? Answer: Khaybar and Mecca will make an alliance against us. Khaybar is to the northwest, Mecca is to the south, and we would be sandwiched. Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam understood this strategic environment in which the Muslims were located. Understood that you could not sit down and do nothing. Go to the masjid and go back home. Go to the masjid and go back home. That you needed an initiative that would alter this strategic environment and make it more advantageous for you. What did he do? In fact, it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who sent the guidance which is applicable to us today. As Israel prepares to launch its attack on Iran and on Pakistan and then on Egypt, Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam had a dream, or a vision more properly, in which he saw himself making tawaf around the Kaaba. But the Kaaba is in Mecca, and we in Mecca are at war with each other. How can you go to the Kaaba? But this was a peace offensive that was dazzling in its diplomatic brilliance. He woke up from his sleep, and this is now the year 6 of the Hijrah, and he announced that he is going to make Umrah, to visit the house of Allah. The whole of Arabia recognized the right of every Arab to visit the house of Allah. And if the Quraysh were to block you from visiting the house of Allah, you will win public opinion on your side, and they will be cornered. But if the Quraysh allows us to perform the Umrah while we are at war, they are at war with us, and we go to Mecca and we make the Umrah and we make the Tawaf and we come back home, the whole of Arabia would be laughing at the Quraysh. And so when Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam announced that we're going to the house of Allah to make the pilgrimage, the lesser pilgrimage, the Umrah, this was a peace offensive which placed the Quraysh on the horns of a dilemma. On the horns of a dilemma. They could not allow us to come because that would be embarrassing, and they could not prevent us from coming because that would be a public relations disaster for them. It's called the horns of a dilemma, and it is diplomacy at its most brilliant. A peace offensive against someone waging war against you. There was a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent that vision, which directed our attention first towards Mecca rather than to Khaybar. If we had not announced that we're going to Mecca on a pilgrimage to the house of Allah, if we had taken up arms to go and fight Mecca, then what would the Khaybar do? When we have left Medina to march down to Mecca, Khaybar will attack Medina and take Medina. And we lose our base. So we can't move south. No, we lose Medina. And if we were to leave Medina to go and attack Khaybar, what's going to happen? Mecca will come and take Medina, because Medina would not be defended. So we cannot go south to attack Mecca, nor can we go northwest to attack Khaybar, because either of these two will lose Medina. We cannot sit doing nothing, because if we sit, Khaybar and Mecca will form an alliance against us. But if we leave Medina to go to the house of Allah on a pilgrimage, then if Khaybar were to attack Medina, the whole Arab world will rise up against Khaybar. How can you do that to a people who've gone to visit the house of Allah? Have you no shame? We will teach you a lesson you will never forget. The whole of Arabia would have fought on our behalf to defend Medina. This is the brilliance of this initiative, this peace offensive, that we could travel down to Mecca without any fear of Medina being attacked by Khaybar behind our backs. Mecca decided to send 200 men with horses to prevent us from reaching Mecca. And Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam was alerted. So he had intelligence, military intelligence, and he took a circuitous route and was successful in bypassing the 200 horsemen led by Khalid bin Walid radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And having successfully bypassed them, we were able to reach into the area that is known as the Haram, the sacred area, where you cannot be attacked. As soon as we entered that area, we camped at a place called Hudaybiyah. It was not our intention to march straight to Mecca. We camped at Hudaybiyah so that Mecca will now have to decide, the ball is in your court now. What is Mecca going to do? Remember, they can't allow us in. The whole of Arabia would laugh at them, and they cannot prevent us from entering, because then all of Arabia will turn against them. You're violating the customary law. In other words, what we did, MashaAllah, we forced the enemy to the negotiating table. We forced them to come and talk to us. They sent one of their elders to come and talk to us. And he returned with the warning to them, leave this man alone. I have been to the courts of kings and emperors. I've never seen anyone so honored and so protected by his people as Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And this man has come in peace. They don't have any weapons with them other than the sword, which every Arab is allowed according to customary law. Leave him alone. They sent someone else after that. And when the Prophet saw him coming, he knew that this was a man who had a very